In this episode of Talking About Orks, we're going over the Mekboy workshop, which is a fortification introduced with the Codex, and you may have even forgotten this thing existed. That's how bad it is. So the Mekboy workshop, while it is a cool little model, is absolutely useless. And it's 80 points of absolutely useless. So, Ork structure, after setup, Mekboy is treated as a train feature, cannot move, cannot be treated, and it is not treated as a friendly or an enemy model, and cannot be targeted or affected by attacks or abilities. So it's literally train. Grab and claw, you can potentially do mortal wounds to something that is within 1 inch of it. I don't think it's ever going to matter. But here's where it comes in. Custom job. At the end of your movement phase, one Ork vehicle unit from your army that is within 1 inch of this model can receive a custom job. If it does so, then until the end of turn, here's the key points. That unit cannot shoot or charge, and the attacks characteristic of the model of that unit is reduced to 1, but you can choose and resolve one of the following effects. A unit until the end of your next movement phase, increase the move characteristics of the models in that unit by 6 inches. In addition, rolls a d6 to see if a unit receives something extra special. On a 6, add 1 to charge rolls for that unit for the rest of the battle. You're talking about adding 6 inches to the movement of a unit that's stuck in your deployment zone for the first turn. This is absolutely useless. More rivets, the unit regains d3 lost wounds. If there's a big mech or mech from your army within 1 inch of its model and has not used its repairability, it can oversee the custom job and so the unit gains 3 lost wounds instead of d3. And then that model cannot use the repairability this turn. In addition, roll d6 to see that unit receives something extra special. On a 6, add 1 to the toughness characteristic of the models in that unit for the rest of the battle. So completely useless. I'd rather just not worry about that at all. I just don't see how that could be useful. And then the last one, more DACA, which is one you would think you'd want to use. Choose one weapon, excluding a bubble chucker, that model in that unit is equipped with. Again, it's only for one weapon, not all weapons. Next time that any models in that unit fire that weapon, the weapon takes a maximum number of attacks. A weapon with heavy 2d6 becomes 12 shots. In addition, roll d6 to see if the unit receives something extra special. On a 6, add 1 to the chosen weapon's damage characteristic for the rest of the battle. I think there's a stratagem for this too, right? I guess not. I thought there was some way to get that extra special up. Anyway, again, it's absolutely useless because now you can't shoot that turn. You use this ability. So there's just everything's wrong with this in the way it's worded. Basically, if you could use, it needs to be fixed. If this thing was fixed, you would see this pretty much all the time. So we're talking, first of all, get rid of you can't use more DACA on the turn you use it. The more speed thing, I know that's one thing, because it's at the end of the movement phase, so you wouldn't be able to use that the first turn anyway. So it needs to be for the rest of the game. Instead of 6 inches, to say until the end, let's see, more speed, add 3 inches to that unit's movement for the rest of the battle. So then that would justify something sitting in your deployment zone on that first turn. Something like kill a cans. If you give it, because you can't use this on cans, unlike stratagems. So you could give kill a cans like an extra unit, a full unit of 6 cans, an extra 3 inches of movement would be amazing. Totally worth 80 points. Because they could sit there. Or if there's something, if you go second, you could give them more, and give them, if they have the bazookas, give them more DACA, and then you'd be able to shoot that turn with them. This would be awesome to support killicans. And more DACA you need to be able to shoot the turn and use it, pure and simple. For 80 points, you need to be able to shoot the turn you use this ability. And I would think, and again, it's only for one weapon on the model. So for Stompas, it really wouldn't be that huge of a difference for Stompa shooting, because then you could only pick either the Def Cannon or the Super Gather, but you couldn't do both. And that makes a big difference. If it was all weapons on the model, that would be different. Because then you would be, use Super Rockets and the Super Gatler and the Scorcha and the Def Cannon all get maximum number of shots. That would be a little much. But you have to pick one weapon to get the maximum number of shots. So you should be able to use it on the turn it comes up. And before the Codex came out, before we saw the actual rules for it, I want to use this with my kill tank and the Giga Shooter, which is 66 shots. Which comes an average of 20. Give it 36 shots every turn guaranteed. Even to say if you change it to do mortal wounds to itself or some crap like that, fine. But guaranteeing 36 shots every turn on the kill tank is worth 80 points. And again, the kill tank is already like a 400 point model, so another 80 on top of that makes it nearly 500 and more than a Castellan. Let me bring this up. You're talking Castellan Knight points range. So I don't think it's unreasonable or overpowered to guarantee 36 shots for that kind of points at all. This needs to be fixed. You never see this on the battlefield. It's only a terrain piece. The kit isn't that expensive. The kit is awesome. It needs to get rid of that restriction. And the same with the more speed. It has to be more than one turn. Because adding speed to a unit that cannot move on its first turn is absolutely useless. And the shooting is almost useless because, if you do it on that first turn, so not only are you losing that first turn of shooting, but then it could be destroyed before it actually gets the shot off at all, the vehicle that you use this on. So there's a chance it may literally do nothing. You might hear me singing a little bit excited, but for 80 points, you would expect the model to actually do at least something. This thing does nothing. And it needs to. It needs to do something. And simple fixes, again, for the points cost, we're talking, it's not like 20 points. If this thing was like 20 points and it does these things as it is, maybe you could sneak that in once in a while for something specific. But at 80 points, I can't think of anything that I would give up to spend 80 points on this thing in its current form. Anything that can actually do damage, even if it doesn't do much damage. If you do one wound to a Space Marine with a Def Copter's Big Shooter for 40 points, you've already done way more than this Mekboy workshop will do in a game. So yeah, that's the problem with this thing. It's just the fact you can't use the Mordaka on the turn you activate it makes this absolutely useless. But if you could, again, some people might see that as overpowered, something like the Giga Shooter firing 36 shots guaranteed. But we're talking 80 points. We're talking a 500 point investment to be able to pull that off. Versus a Knight, with his 2 Gatlings, is 24 shots guaranteed for like 350 points. That's a better gun on top of it and hits better. So yeah, no, this will never be overpowered. And again, because you can only choose one weapon on a model instead of every weapon, that also changes things for like the Stompa. I think there's not much else I would use on. Maybe the big track with Super Scorcha. You could probably use it on that, especially if you got planes coming nearby. That would be good use for that. Let's see what else. Yeah, the Gorkanaut already has 18 shots guaranteed with its gun, so that's really not affecting that at all. Maybe the Morkanaut, does it have? Yeah, maybe the Morkanaut with its custom Mega Zappa get 9 shots guaranteed. Might not make the Morkanaut quite so bad. Actually, that might not be so bad at all. You won't be able to use it on planes because they're going to have to move that first turn. Well, I guess you could move it sideways. But yeah, for 80 points, we're talking, again, I cannot stress this enough, this thing is 80 points if you want to take it as a fortification. And I just can't see how it could ever be worth 80 points. So I would say, ask my standard question of, have you run the Mekboy workshop? But I can guarantee you no one has. Or if they did, they didn't do it more than once. So, again, this needs to be fixed where you can, one, use more DACA on the turn. You can actually shoot the turn and use more DACA. And two, the more speed is a permanent boost to the movement characteristic. Those are the two things that would make this thing useful. So if you got, like a battle wagon or bone breaker, sure, you probably want to move it up turn 1, but you can move it within one. There's a pretty big model, so you can move it a little bit up forward, add 3 inches to his movement, and get ready to go next turn. And again, something like the kill tank, even a Stompa's, getting the maximum number of shots on one of the Stompa's weapons wouldn't be horrible. You could even use it on Met guns if you really wanted the maximum number of shots on, say, a KMK. You could use it on, I said you could use it on the Wazbomb Blaster Jets cannons as well to get guaranteed 6 shots, but I don't think that's really worth it. But yeah, so there would be a lot of really good uses for these abilities if they were useful. But yeah, for 80 points, it's absolutely useless, unfortunately. And it should, if it was fixed, if those fixes I suggested, this thing would actually probably see quite a bit of play. A significant amount of play, which of course sells more models. But I guess I don't know why GW refuses to actually fix Ork stuff or make it viable. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the Mekboy Workshop. I want it to not suck. Just like everything else I complain about, the Morkanaut, the Stompa, and the Mech Workshop. There's so many things in here that just fall short of being good and useful and cool. That they've gone from, and there are a lot of things in the book that are almost viable, but are still playable in a lot of situations. And there are things, again, like the Stompa, the Morkanaut, and now the Mekboy Workshop, that are just completely useless entirely. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the Mekboy Workshop. I still want one, just to have one, but I'll never pay the 80 points for it. And thanks for watching. Thank you for watching this episode of Talking About Orks. Please subscribe and hit the bell button for notifications for new Talking About Orks videos every Wednesday, new battle reports every Friday, and hobby videos whenever I can. Thanks for watching.